So today I want to talk about a French comedy that gives America's best a run for their money. A film that throws gags at the audience with the reckless speed of Blazing Saddles or Airplane. Unexpectedly, it's Asterix and Obelix, Mission Cleopatra. The words French comedy generally don't bring me joy, with a few exceptions. The films of Jacques Tati have the exceptional pedigree of Chaplin and Keaton, and there are occasional unexpected works of genius like Dîner des Cons or Le Père Noël est une ordure. Those are great movies grossly underserved by their US remakes, but a lot of French comedy relies on slapstick and hijinks that leave me cold. So it was a shock that Asterix et Obelix, Mission Cleopatra had me spitting out my drink every 2 minutes. A double shock, actually, I'll get to that. The Asterix comics are a major classic of BD, the French and Belgian art of graphic novels. Bande dessinée, traditionally published in hardcover, often deal with adult material. Among the classic BD for children, though, Asterix was one of the most popular titles, along with Tintin, Les Schtroumpfs, and Lucky Luke, whose villains, Les Daltons, may have loaned DiCaprio's cowboy actor in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood his name.
You're Rick and Dalton. Don't you forget it.
I visited very few French houses that did not have at least a handful of these volumes on their shelf, often outside the bathroom for lengthy contemplation. And while the Schtroumpfs broke into American culture, and Tintin is generally known worldwide, maybe thanks only to Spielberg in the United States, Asterix was king for me as a child, as he was for a lot of kids worldwide. Every book began with the same explanation. The Romans had conquered the known world, but could not conquer one little village in northern France. Thanks to a magic potion brewed by the druid Panoramix, which made its residents invincible, this little Gaulish village remained free to hunt boars and have adventures. The strongest man of the village was the oafish, childlike Obelix, and their great hero was the tiny, clever Asterix. Oh, and there's also Obelix's dog, Idéfix. Yeah, I was a fan. A quick aside, since this video is about a French film, I'm going to use the French names for the characters. The puns don't always translate, so Idéfix et Panoramix, for example, are Dogmatix and Getafix in English, but hopping back and forth between the dialogue and subtitles in this movie is a real headache. If you don't speak French, the movie's still funny, but trust me, Idéfix and Numéro bis are funnier names than what the English translations give you. Anyhow, in 1999, we were thrilled to see Asterix finally hit the big screen in live action. France's biggest superstar, Gerard Depardieu, was cast as Obelix, comedy giant Christian Clavier as Asterix, and a vast cavalcade of French cinema royalty, plus indie darling Roberto Benigni still glowing from his Oscar in '97, and the queen of Les Top Modèles, Laetitia Casta, in her cinema debut. The movie, it sucked. The film missed what made the comics so great, the visual wit of artist Alberto Uderzo. When Asterix punches a Roman, he flies heavenward, but what makes it funny is his tightly bound sandals being left on the ground below. As Charles Schulz once said of the great Bill Watterson, creator of Calvin and Hobbes, Bill Watterson draws wonderful bedside tables. I admire that. He also draws great water splashes, and living room couches, and chairs, and lamps, and yawns. Uderzo had that same magic in spades, and the 1999 movie just didn't. Handing the creative reins to writer-director Alan Chabat, its 2002 sequel unexpectedly captured all of the comics magic and more. Every scene bursts with attention to visual detail. It's not enough for a woman dosed with her first magic potion to toss a column effortlessly. It has to land on another column, with the frescoes perfectly aligned. Another improvement to my mind, the first film focused naturally on its titular heroes, Asterix and Obelix, and while Depardieu was surprisingly ideal as Obelix, I personally just don't think Christian Clavier is very funny. He falls into the French comedy category I danced around at the beginning of this review. In Mission Cleopatra, the Gauls are allowed to slide into supporting roles. They become the Han Solos, the Jack Sparrows, the supporting characters who make the movie memorable, but they don't need to carry the whole film. The lead now is Numéro bis, a small fry Egyptian architect played with intense insecurity by Jamel Debbouze. Numéro bis is an everyman that we can latch onto.
Raté, vous nous avez raté! Hé, les Romains, vous êtes des Romains! Et le mec lui dit, c'est le phare à on.
The Gauls only show up 14 minutes into the film. Cleopatra is sick to death of Caesar belittling her Egyptians as an inferior people. She wagers that she can raise a palace in the desert to beggar Caesars in Rome within 3 months. Numéro bis gets drafted to make this boast a reality. If he fails, it's crocodiles for him. He recruits the Gauls to make the palace happen. Colorful villains try to squash their plans. Hilarity ensues. There's plenty in this film to please kids. slapstick humor, goofy character design, cartoonishly childlike behavior on all sides. But most of the humor is firmly aimed at geezers like myself.
Tu as vu la taille de ce nez?
Ah, ça c'est sûr, c'est un roc, c'est un cap, je dis, c'est un cap, c'est une péninsule.
C'est un roc, c'est un pic, c'est un cap, que dis-je, c'est un cap, c'est une péninsule.
The movie bursts with cultural references both high and low, certainly not aimed at the children.
Les lumières du port d'Alexandrie.
Font naufrager les papillons de ma jeunesse. Non, je sais pas pourquoi je dis ça.
Lumière du phare d'Alexandrie fait naufrager les papillons de ma jeunesse.
En tout cas, j'ai plus appétit qu'à Barracuda.
Barracuda.
A lot of the physical humor works on the level of a kid's film, but the overall tone is for grown-ups. The neurotic little guy from the Parisian suburbs appeals to the working-class nebs like myself, while kids will be enchanted with the super-heroic Gauls. An Egyptian slaves union negotiating how many lashes per hour they receive is funny, and even funnier if you've ever been at the mercy of la grève, a French workers' strike. I once went to Disneyland Paris, and I was informed that all pirates and ghosts would be en grève from 2 to 6 p.m. that day. That's annoying to a child, and it's hilarious to an adult. The love-hate relationship between Caesar and Cleopatra seethes with all the passion of a Latin love affair, and is obviously much too weird for kids. And Monica Bellucci, clad in outfits that suggest even more than they reveal, which is a lot, is more than just a winking gift to the dads in the audience. She replaces Letitia Casta from the first movie as the hot chick. But where Casta's role was negligible, Bellucci is the driving force in the story, furiously opinionated and threatening, and also the juggernaut that Numero Bis and the Gauls need to save their bacon.
Mais j'ai jamais dit le si je peux quand même.
The child in me is delighted to finally see my heroes depicted with justice on the big screen. Curmudgeonly old Paul relishes a comedy that pulls out all the stops, is rarely, if barely, vulgar, and makes me laugh out loud. As far as comic adaptations go, Asterix et Obelix Mission Cléopâtre is as faithful and good as they can get.
Barracuda.